Obviously, the major news today is Senator Ted Kennedy has passed away, and he was 77 years old, and of course, patriarch of not only the Kennedy family, but you could say, obviously, a line of the Senate and one of the oldest serving members there, obviously. And he was an enormous figure, of course, for a couple of different reasons. One, he championed civil rights, rights for workers in the country, rights for the poor, etc. The one thing that I take away from his death and the way he was treated when he was alive was, I know a lot of people have done his good work. They've talked about that today, mentioned a little bit in passing some of the controversies that he had. And whenever anyone dies, of course, they're made to be bigger and bigger. Now, Senator Kennedy was a huge figure, right? But now everybody loves him now that he's passed away. Although, of course, there are many conservatives in the country who will not say that today, right? But they have respect for the dead, and I haven't seen anyone say anything too bad. I mean, of course, Rush Limbaugh was bragging about how he got it right that Kennedy was going to die. Stay classy. Okay, way to go. And by the way, that took a genius to figure out, after all the health problems that he had. The rest of us had the decency not to, talk about it, gloat, etc. after the guy dies. So obviously there are those folks. And I think that some maybe even overstate Kennedy to some degree. Now I'm seeing that he's being compared to some of the greatest legislators in American history. Henry Clay, Calhoun, etc. Some of the, the largest figures in Senate history. But on the other hand, maybe they're not overstating it. Maybe I'm in the moment too much, and it's hard to see when you have a historic figure in front of you and that you've lived through your whole life. He's been in the Senate ever since I've been conscious, and so he is a huge figure, no doubt about it. I get a little concerned about people overstating the case when someone dies, right? And that's true of conservatives, liberals, non-political figures, etc. But that's a huge lead up to this but. But the thing that bothered me about the way they treated him when he was alive was they called him a limousine liberal, right? And the conservatives and the Republicans will always attack him like, oh yeah, Ted Kennedy, right, what does he know, man? He just got family money, and so he doesn't know anything, and he's a limousine liberal, trying to help the poor, ha ha. But wait a minute now, think about it. So would Ted Kennedy's life have been better, or I guess would the conservatives have approved of it more, if he was a rich guy who only cared about other rich people? Or if he was a rich guy who only cared about himself? So his big crime to them was that he cared about the poor even though he was rich. Isn't that a good thing? Isn't that a great thing? Now look, a lot of people get into politics because they love the power and money comes along with it and fame, etc. And I'm not saying Ted Kennedy was an angel and he didn't care about the power. No. He was a human being, and I'm sure that appealed to him as it would to anybody, right? But he was a rich guy, and he could have done a lot of things. And instead, he spent his life, now, and it's a good life if you ask me, and I might have spent it the same way. I'm not saying like he sacrificed a lot, but he did spend his life trying to look out for people who were disadvantaged, who did not have the money he had, who did not have the power or the name or the recognition that he had. And I got to say, keeping it real, that's what I think was great about Ted Kennedy. That he wasn't some superhuman legislator riding to the rescue on every issue, and he wasn't some bad guy that the conservatives made him out to be, but that he was a guy who spent his life trying to do good, when a lot of other people are far, far more selfish. So, of course, it's a shame that Ted Kennedy passed away today, especially because the cause of his life was healthcare reform, and he didn't get to see it happen. It turns out there's a letter hanging on the wall of one of his offices from Senator Trent Lott, obviously a very Republican, very conservative senator from Mississippi. And he said, it says, just quote, "Thank you, my friend, for your many courtesies, if the world only knew." And for some reason, I found that to be a little powerful. And it's interesting how much respect that Trent Lott had for Ted Kennedy. And if you're a conservative or Republican today, I think that might speak to you as far as, what you should know about what kind of a decent person Ted Kennedy was to the people around him, even if he didn't agree with you. Point number two, it was a story of Jerry Falwell inviting Ted Kennedy to Liberty University. And he just kind of did it probably as a little bit of a marketing ploy, if you will. Like, haha, I'll invite Ted Kennedy, aren't I open-minded? Well, it turns out Ted Kennedy accepted. Said, all right, you know what? I'd love to come and make a speech there. Now, one of the assistants for Jerry Falwell says that when he found out Kennedy accepted, he turned white as a sheet. Okay, didn't know what he was going to say, but he came and they had a nice dinner, and then afterwards, Kennedy gave the speech, and he said in it, and I like this line, "I believe there surely is such a thing as truth, but who among us can claim a monopoly? There are those who do, and their own words testify to their intolerance." See, he's friendly, he's collegial, he reaches out, and then he has the courage to say what's true. Okay? In that case, be wary of people who tell you blanket statements about knowing, in this case, referring to Jerry Falwell, the will of God and what is universally true. We all make our best attempt at trying to get at what's true, but the ones who tell you that they know for sure and that there is no other way, well, those are the intolerant ones. And then finally, it's a story from his son, Patrick Kennedy. And, I thought maybe that one was the best one because Patrick Kennedy said that every once in a while somebody would come up to him and say, hey, I really want to thank you for what your dad and your family have done for me. And Patrick would say, oh, great, thank you, but I don't know what we did. And it turns out because Teddy Kennedy would never talk about it and never made it public, but from time to time he would go and help families with their health care bills. And if someone was in real trouble, he would give money out of his own pocket to help them. Now, isn't that ironic? Because we just talked yesterday about Tom Coburn saying, hey, if you're sick, go ask for help from your neighbor because we're not going to help you. Well, it turns out the one neighbor who would have helped you is Ted Kennedy, the guy that they demonize the most. There's a little bit of irony there.